Welcome to the Macros for Life podcast, where we talk all things macros, business, and marriage. We're your hosts, Eve and Randall Guzman. Visit our website at www.gtransformationacademy.com, where you can download our free How to Track Macros guide. This guide has helped over 15,000 people start their macro tracking journey. What's up? What's good? What's happening? Welcome back to the Macros for Life podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us, Coach Hannah. She is a business owner, expert macro coach, and the head coach of the Macro Mentorship. Welcome, Hannah. Let's talk about you a little bit.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get all bashful.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, don't be bashful. Be you. Be you at Macro You, baby. Let's go.
With that introduction, you like literally just said it with your chest. I was like,
Hey.
But no, honestly, we're super excited to have you. You guys, she's been our head coach of Macro Mentorship for how many rounds? Was it like
10?
11?
I think this is the 10th cohort that we're in right now.
10th cohort. So she started on the other side of our macronutrition coaching certification, actually went through the program and then became the first coach and then the head coach of all the coaches that we have now. And I'm really excited because I feel like you're one of my best friends.
Oh, samesies.
We're just not going to be cooing and stuff. We're not cooing and stuff on the podcast today.
Honestly though, like you don't always get to work with people you like you're literally like running away from the people you typically have to work with in real life. So we got super lucky that we have such, awesome coaches on our team and we feel like teammates. And I'm always like, I'm not really the boss. We're just like doing the same shit together. I'm just the bossier one.
Well, I guess it depends on what day. Sometimes I'm the bossier one.
So let's tell everybody all about you. Where did you start with fitness? You can go back to childhood of what you were doing, not doing, lack of athleticism. Tell us all about little Hannah and how you got to where you are now.
Little Hannah was pretty active. We used to go skiing every weekend. I was the enforcer on my field hockey team. I was like the tough one that nobody wanted to mess with. Randall, don't give me that look. I was the enforcer.
I could see.
I was the muscle on the field hockey team. And I was a swimmer, but and I think that was the case all through high school is sort of where things got a little bit dicey for me. I won't go into detail as to all that happened there, but life took some turns. Things happened. But let's fast forward a little bit past high school. About 15 years or so ago, I moved to Cambridge from another area of Boston. And at that time, there was a lot of daily drug use, drinking until I was blacked out. My mental health was just in an absolutely terrible place. And a lot of that was because of what had happened through high school and college. So this was like a decade of trauma that had been built up. And I was kind of feeling like I was probably very close to rock bottom. Like it felt like I was drowning and I could never find my way to the surface. And I was blocking all of the important people out in my life away from me. So like nobody was even aware of how bad it was. So no one was reaching out to help me. I wouldn't have even allowed them to, if they did know. So it was just not a great time. And so when I moved to Cambridge, it ended a lot of really toxic, very codependent relationships that I had in my life, which was good, but it did absolutely nothing for my mental health to then like be all by myself without any support at all. And so one day I'm like, oh, I used to work out a lot when I was a swimmer. Like this is my opportunity for a clean slate. Let's go to the gym. So there's a gym like literally 2-minute walk from my condo. And I went over there because I was like, I'm going to get fit. I'm going to get healthy. I had no intention of actually doing that, but I was like, going to the gym would be a first step. And so when you go to the gym, you get a free training session. And And the trainer that had been assigned to me that day never showed up, but the substitute, or like the stand-in trainer, was there. And that day was like day one of a whole different version of my life that was happening. This trainer that stepped in is still my best friend to this day. He's, I mean, you've heard me talk about him. His name's Anthony. He's also he's still a trainer. But that trainer and Anthony and I, we trained 3 times a week. And over the years, he really encouraged like the heavy lifting and helped me build my confidence up. And, you know, I cut out the drugs that I was using. I stopped smoking. I improved my nutrition. I started actually taking care of myself and caring about myself. Because he like made me feel like I deserved that in my life. And it was like a whole different world than what I had been experiencing for the past 10, 15 years before that. And so over the years, he saw that I was getting more and more interested in fitness and the training aspect and the coaching aspect. So he started like mentoring me, helping me set up for classes, teaching me about like what goes into it, how he sets up the classes, like how he sets up training sessions. And then in 2012, I left my job in higher ed with like a solid paycheck and full benefits and a 401k to be a free intern at a gym and start coaching, much to the dismay of my parents. But yeah, I mean, I really think that like people come into your life for a reason at the exact time when they're supposed to. And I tell him this all the time, but like he saved my life just being the one that stepped in that day. I have no idea what would have happened if it was the other coach that was there that day. But yeah, he saved my life. If I had continued in the spiral that I was in, I probably would not be alive today in the direction and at the speed at which I was going down that path. And like a lot of the weight gain over the years was tied to that past trauma in high school and college and, you know, just wanting to like be invisible. Like if I weighed more, people won't pay attention to me in that way. And then the self-hatred of being very overweight made me diet in really unhealthy ways. And it was like this yo-yo back and forth. So when I got into training and eventually nutrition coaching, something that I've always really wanted to be sort of a pillar in my business and how I coached was like reflecting on like this zoomed out version of coaching. And that it had to be more of like a healthy lifestyle and not putting the emphasis strictly on the scale, because that's how I approached it. And I equated my worth to the number on the scale into what my body looked like versus how I was actually feeling and how I was taking care of myself. So you guys know this, but like a lot of, you know, what I preach in my coaching business is all about the habits and the behaviors and the self-care and things that help us actually live a healthier life. So yeah, in 2020, I started my business with Macro Mentorship. Thank you, Eve, coming in the beginning of the pandemic, right time, right place, right person. Again, it's like one of those situations where like the right person comes along. Like you popped into my stories when, you know, the pandemic was a rumbling and I hated the place that I was working. And you're like, early bird special ending today. So I was like, all right, fuck it. Sorry, fuck it. I'm in. I'm doing the thing. So I just joined and I'm so thankful to be a head coach. You guys know this. I say this all the time. And just to be able to like create a business that embodies all of the things that I feel like are so important. You know, my trainer changed my life in every way. And like, I'm going to get emotional, but like, if I can have even a sliver of that kind of impact on somebody else, then all of like the hard work and the tears and like the drama of running your own business is 1,000% worth it. So that's like long story short.
That was a great story.
The drama of Hannah Williams becoming
that's heavy. That was heavy.
But it was like
my life is heavy, Randall.
It was a good heavy.
I did not know this. Like I heard you talk about Anthony so many times,
Well, now
Uh,
you know why I talk about him all the time. It's because he, without pushing me, with
Mhm.
like he let me come to him. Like he
yeah.
met me where I was and he accepted me. Like I would show up to our training sessions hung over as like sometimes still drunk, to be honest. And he never once made me feel bad or
Yeah.
guilty about that. Like he
Mhm.
met me where I was, and it's like had he been a different type of if he was anybody else, I would not have stuck with it. But I did because he met me where I was at and because like, he allowed me to be myself, but he saw through all of the bullshit front that I was putting up to like protect me from all of the shit that I was trying to avoid. And he just
Mhm.
like slowly but surely like knocked that wall down. And yeah, he's still my best friend.
Mhm.
His kids are my friends, his wife is my friend, and it's he's stuck with me for life. I've told him that many times.
That's
Well,
good shit
damn,
right there.
Anthony.
That's good shit
Damn,
right there.
Anthony.
It is,
Damn,
I
Anthony's
know.
right.
Yeah.
But like it makes total sense for us and all that know you and love you, how that has had like a huge impact on like your style of coaching because you truly do like you do a zoomed out version of coaching. And we'll talk a little bit how like you're not always talking about the scale and weight loss and fat loss and how in fact you really don't show any physical client transformations, but you do focus more on connecting with people. And there is a post that you wrote, and I think you may have like put it up another time in a different like perspective or repurpose in a different way, but it's a post that you wrote about like for coaches, like if you feel like your clients aren't listening to you, and clients, if you feel like your coach doesn't get you, it's not them falling in this category of like they don't want it bad enough, or them falling in a category that they're not uncoachable, but like maybe the coach doesn't understand the client, and that's something you focus on. And I feel like your relationship with Anthony, like when he met you where you are, he was like really just trying to understand you. And
Yeah.
he held the space for you to have you connect in a way that you wanted to start to do fitness for other reasons than like, what it might have just been like superficially.
Yeah. I mean, I've been very lucky with the mentors that I've had as I've, progressed through my business. Like
Mhm.
Anthony obviously being one of them. And like had it not been for him, I mean, I wouldn't have become a trainer, but or all that part. Like if I had just had the mentors that I had in the gyms that I worked at and he wasn't there, like it would have been such a different experience. And it probably would not have ended up the way that I probably wouldn't have stuck with it. And then having you as my mentor through building my business and nutrition, both you and Anthony have been such a pivotal part in me believing that I can do this. Cause like, I mean, as a business owner, how many times a day are we like,
Huh.
hey, can I do this? Should I be doing this? And so between the two of you, it's just like this incredible sense of like belief in the people that you both work with. And that I think has helped shape me into the kind of coach who does the same. Um, and that's what I hope for all of the macro mentorship coaches that come through is to get that sense that like we're not just nutrition coaches, we're not just macro coaches. Like it has to be about the journey that your client is on and how powerful of a role you have the opportunity to be in their life. You know what I mean? It's like you're holding their transformation, not just physically, but like emotionally in their hands. And that can either be a really
Mhm.
positive experience or like the story they tell to their next trainer being like, I had this nutrition coach that was like terrible. Like you don't want to be the story to their next nutrition coach. And I think that that's a responsibility that we should all respect on a very deep level. The fact
Mhm.
that people choose to allow us into that journey and to be a part of that. Um, and so if we're not looking at the big picture, if we're not looking at all of these like issues they have going on in their life and the trouble and the challenges that they're facing on a daily basis. Like if we're only looking at nutrition, there's no way it's ever going to be successful for that client in the long run, because
Mhm.
it's only ever going to be about the freaking numbers.
Yeah.
And the transformation has to be emotional. It has to be more than just, are my clothes fitting better? Because otherwise it's just going to be that back and forth that we know happens when people like lose all the weight and then they gain it all back and then they feel like shit. I mean, it's the same cycle that I was going through. I'm sure you guys have also been through that same cycle.
Mhm.
We have such a deep responsibility as coaches, and I think that it's important for us to keep that in mind anytime we take on a new client. Um, so
Yeah. I found the post that you wrote about it, about like, are they uncoachable? Are people not wanting it bad enough? And you wrote, then you as the coach aren't really meeting them where they're at. You're expecting them to meet you where you're comfortable. So
mhm.
you're definitely a
That was
coach.
good.
Yet it was like,
That
if
was
you don't
good.
repost, you need to repost this
I
again
need to
like
repost that. That was
tomorrow,
good.
because
Yeah.
it's so freaking good. And
Yeah.
it puts the mirror on us as coaches, because people are listening to this podcast. 50% are clients, everyday people, 50% are coaches. But sometimes we need the mirror turned on us and going, are we truly meeting people where they're at, so that they stop making, the same quote unquote mistakes over and over again? Because if not, they'll do the diet, then they'll gain the weight back. And then it's like, why aren't things sticking? Sometimes it comes down to us being a coach. Like you said, we've got their transformation in our hands. And are we willing to get uncomfortable, or are we expecting them to do what we think they should be doing as a nutrition client?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you live by that, because if y'all don't know, Hannah's my coach. So 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 of course, like we know, like when I first came to you, my back was fucked up. So I was like, okay, I need you to fix my back. This, that, and the other. Help me fix my back. This, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. So you helped me through that. And then I think like one week I was having a bad week. And I was, I was doing my check-in, and I was like real short answered. And then I said something when I answered one of the questions, and it's true. It was like, men don't talk about problems unless we can solve them.
Mm.
And I was just expecting to keep on moving and to move in the next week. And then and then you made me talk about it, and I was like, I don't fucking want to talk about it. Like it was making me feel all icky inside and shit. I don't want to talk about it. Like
She
I want to
just
keep
said
moving.
that it's also emotional.
Yeah. So she made me talk about it and pulled it out and whatever. And yeah, it was good and stuff, but that ain't my style. Like I don't want to talk about it, but that's you. Like
Yeah,
you
and
gonna make me face my problems and try to figure out what's going on. You're not just gonna let me roll over them and keep going to the next one. So
because that doesn't
yeah,
teach us anything.
yeah, it don't. It don't. It made me feel good to move past it, even though it
I feel like
until
you're
it
getting
comes
coached
and
right now.
until it comes up again, and then you're just going to do the same thing again. Yeah, and I think when you first reached out to me to work together, that, I mean, you knew that that's what you were getting, and I think that's
yeah.
why you reached out to me. Like I was going to give you no bullshit. I was also going to ask you the questions that you probably would not be asking yourself had you
Mm,
gone through this on your own. And I think that over you've seen me sort of transform my own business over the past couple years,
Mm-hmm.
especially. And just like how I present myself, the language that I'm using, like how I want my business to feel. And that is exactly what I want my clients to come to me expecting. Like I want them to know that when they come to me, it's not going to be about specifically numbers on the scale. It's not specifically going to be about macros. It will be about that, but it's also about like, no, 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 we're not going to brush past that like 2-word answer. Like, what do you mean by that? Because that seemed like if it was important enough to put those 2 words down on the check-in, that's something that we need to dive into. Like I don't advertise that I'm like a fat loss coach. Do I think fat loss is important for a lot of people? Probably. I mean, like, look at the population of the United States. Like, there is an obesity epidemic right now. Like, do I think that there are a lot of clients who probably do need to work on fat loss is a part of their journey. Yes, I'm not oblivious to that. I just don't use that as like a marketing tool. I would much rather have clients come to me expecting like, how can I work on how I'm behaving, the choices I'm making, the actions that I'm doing on a daily basis? How do those things then lead to the inevitable weight loss because I'm doing X, Y, and Z versus only looking at Z and being like, why am I not able to keep like avoiding the cookies at night? Like, why do I keep coming back to these same problems? Why am I still hitting these same roadblocks over and over again and not addressing those? Like, that's not the coach that I am. Like, we're gonna look at those roadblocks.
And
We're
you
gonna
state
Why do I
like
keep
over
injuring
and over and
myself?
over and over.
over and
Why do I
over.
keep injuring myself?
Yeah, and you do a really like your messaging on your Instagram account like has changed so much, even in like the last 18 months to 2 years. But you're always writing posts and content to challenge people, whether they're working with you or not, to kind of step it up and dig a little deeper. There's a post that you wrote where you said there's one thing I require of every single one-on-one client, and it's probably not what you think. And those typical things are like, you got to macro track. You got to hit your steps. You got to have your water because we know you're all about, chugs before mugs. Make sure you guys hashtag that. And like, you have to cut out all alcohol or even like being ready. Like the only requirement that you have for people to work with you is to be open to explore thoughts, mindset, and behavior patterns. And that's what Randall had to do.
Big time.
Yeah.
Because he do, I mean, and that's the thing, like a lot of the clients that come to me, I would say like half my clients are more of like behavior based, like, habit based coaching. About half is macros, but most of the macro tracking clients that I have are like experienced trackers. And so it's not about teaching them like, oh, how do I get those extra 10 grams of protein? Like, try some Greek yogurt. Like, it's not those sort of conversations as much as it is like the reason they're coming to me is for that other kind of support that other coaches may not offer. Or they just haven't found someone that they connect with on the level where they're prepared to open up to them in that way. So yeah, it's been quite a journey getting here.
Have you had anybody apply that said anything like, I don't know if this will work for me?
Almost everybody. It's just like, well,
Oh,
not okay, that was an exaggeration, but like, yeah, of course. I would say like every other client that comes to me that I'm like, FYI, you know this about me already because you've seen my Instagram. Like, this is what I expect. And I make it pretty clear on my discovery calls with new clients that I don't know. Like, this is what you can expect from me as a coach. Like, it's not just going to be a check-in, okay, whatever. Like, I'm going to ask you questions and you might feel uncomfortable with those questions. But if I'm asking you them, it's because it's going somewhere. Like, it's because I see where a potential shift could be made that will either make things feel easier for you, that will maybe explore like why you keep hitting these roadblocks, or it'll just sort of shed light on things. One of my Laura Poberon, she was talking to me when I took her course years ago, and she said that coaches are just the flashlight that guide the path, right? So like when I'm asking questions, like I'm not leading them anywhere. I'm showing them where the path is, and they're walking through it. So when I'm asking these questions to clients, like I'm not giving them answers. I'm just asking like, well, what do you think? Like, well, why is it that you ask that question of me? Why is it that you feel that way? And yeah, I mean, there's usually a lot of pushback. But they come to me for a reason. And if they're not open to those conversations, they don't need to work with me. But I have had other clients that have said no to it and have gone somewhere else and then have come back to me and said, okay, well, maybe that's not the worst idea to explore this other way of approaching it. I'm like, well, could have started that 6 months ago, but it's not that they weren't ready. They just weren't prepared to have those conversations. no one's ever ready to like confront
Yeah.
these things, but like,
No.
are they prepared to be uncomfortable? Like, are they prepared to
Hmm.
have that uncomfortable conversation? Probably not ready, but that's fine. You can do it. Do it before you're ready. Ready?
Yep. Do it afraid.
Do it
Do it afraid.
afraid.
Do,
I knew
Randall,
that was coming.
were you afraid? Were you afraid when working with
I was
me?
very uncomfortable. I'm still uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, I gotta talk again. Like she's starting to dig into my feelings again.
Randall, now that I know how much you love that, I'm really going
Ah.
to push that. I have your check-in coming up later today. I mean, now that I know.
Yeah, he said something about it to me one time because, like, I stay completely out of it. If anybody's listening, if you're wondering, like, does he know how the check-ins go? No, I stay completely out of it. There's definitely things in our marriage and business we keep separate, but there was this one time that he was like, man, I got this call with Hannah, or it was your check-in or something. He was like, man, she's making me talk about my feelings. And I had like a 2 sentence answer. That was the one thing. And I was like, oh, really? And I just like, this is so good for him. I'm so excited. I mean, it's like so great because like
100%.
there's a lot of things that people think are taboo, like therapy. It's almost like where nutrition, and this is kind of what your bio says, like a nutrition and mindset and habits meet, but it's also kind of like therapeutic, but it like
Yeah.
stops some of the behaviors from happening again and again, or at least you get this light bulb that goes off and goes, oh, I'm falling into the same pattern. And that's what I did before I self-sabotaged or I
Yeah.
quit or thought I wasn't making progress. And sometimes people like they need the light shown on those things.
Yeah.
Because if not, you don't change.
Yeah. Like when Randall and I first started working together, he mentioned that like his back was all jacked up. And one of his goals was to start lifting again in a way that like would not immediately trigger back pain every single time. And so we were talking about his warm up routine and his mobility. And he's like, what warm up? Like is warm up with like 315 on the bar and go, basically. But like when you look at it, like that was the intro to digging deeper and getting uncomfortable. Is like me saying, okay, well, here's some warm-up exercises that I want you to do. Here's a couple of mobility drills that I want you to do. And like I didn't start out in week 1 with him being like, tell me about all of your feelings. Like he never would have had any of it. But him getting uncomfortable in a place where he is already comfortable at the gym allowed him to be like, okay. And then when he saw that I knew what I was talking about, and all of a sudden he is not having back pain all the time, I think that level of trust just like built over time. And so when I started asking him these deeper questions, like then it wasn't a far stretch for him to tiptoe into that discomfort of expressing his emotions. And I think again that's meeting him where he was at. And it's the same with any client. Like you can't just go in day 1 and be like, tell me about all of your past trauma and how that's expressed in your nutrition choices. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's about saying like reading the client and sort of seeing like, okay, well, where's the comfort level of like building that trust, and like what can I ask them to do right now that feels a little uncomfortable but still within their realm of I know I can do this. And then over time you build that trust when they see it's working, so that then you can ask the questions that will make a bigger difference and that can like explore these deeper things that may be impacting their nutrition journey in like a much bigger way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
True
Was there
that.
anything was there anything that happened or like an aha moment where you may have said, I want to add more mindset coaching into what I'm doing? Did you try anything out? Did you just see a post or a course? Was there anything that was like, I could do more? Let's try some of this.
I don't remember exactly what I mean. Okay, so I was a philosophy and religion major in college. So I grew up in college, like it was a lot of like thinking beyond just what was there. So like that aspect of like looking a little bit deeper, digging a little deeper, like that has always been a part of my education. And so when I became a coach, like a nutrition coach, when I took Laura's trigger mapping course, that I don't think she does that anymore, but when she offered that, that is when I knew that the approach that I was taking to my business was not the approach that I felt okay with moving forward. And that was really hard for me because and I took her course in, I think, fall, summer of 2021. So it was like
Mhm.
about a year after I started my business through Macro Mentorship. And that first year of my business was very successful. Like I did very well that first year financially. My client roster was full. My programs were selling out. But at that time, I was also focused on like only macro tracking, only fat loss. And that's how I was kind of marketing it, but like softly marketing it that way. Um, and there was always something like in the pit of my stomach that said, like, this doesn't sit well with me because this isn't how I would have wanted to be coached when I was going through a harder time.
Mm.
And I mean, that kind of coaching is fantastic for some people that live that life, that want to be coached like that. But that never sat well with me. And so I started have these rumblings. And I remember I was having conversations with Mary, my business bestie from my macro mentorship cohort, and shout out to Mary, and I was saying, like, I'm like, there's something inside and I don't know like what I'm going to do with my business, but something has to shift. And when I took Laura's trigger mapping course, I realized that my language, how I was like putting myself out there, how I was talking to my clients, the questions I was asking them, everything could be shifted in such a small way. And that made it feel so much more aligned with like how I wanted to help people. And so then after trigger mapping, I did the health mindset coaching certification, which just really just solidified all of it. And so, yeah, I don't think it was ever like a light bulb moment so much as like there was like this knot in the pit of my stomach the
Mhm.
whole time I was like, I know I want to do this and I know I love coaching nutrition and I love the science behind it and I love the framework I have, but something didn't feel right ever. And when I realized I was missing that, like the language that I needed to work with people, and through the HMCC course, like I learned all about like the psychology behind it and like how to actually ask the right questions and how to listen the right way. Um, that's when it all started making sense. And I could put the science of macros together with, the mindset aspect of it. And then it felt
Mhm.
good. Then it felt like I can talk about fat loss. I can talk about macros. I can talk about lifestyle changes, and none of it felt icky anymore. And so, yeah, it wasn't like a pinpoint. It was just like
Mhm.
I don't know, like
What is
it
that
was
like?
a
Whoosh?
realization. It was like a blossoming into the coach that I became. I don't know what it is.
Oh, did
But
you? You
yeah,
blossomed.
but I do think that it was Laura's class um that allowed me to have that kind of language. Like it
Mhm.
was the language that I think I was missing.
Yeah.
Like the words that I felt that I wanted to express to my clients, I didn't have that language that
Mhm.
felt natural to me yet. And I think taking the course that allowed me to speak that way, that allowed me to understand what I was looking for from that, like from the questions, that's when I realized this is the direction that I want to sort of take my business. Um, so yeah, I encourage any coach. I mean, I think that it should be required to me. There are two things that I think all coaches should be required to do. Take a pen and piece of paper out, my friends. I think that all people that work with females should take a pre and postnatal coaching certification of some kind, period.
Okay.
Most women will be pregnant or trying to conceive, pregnant, or postnatal at some point in their life. Like 85% of women. If you are coaching women, you should have a pre and postnatal certification. If you don't, I feel like it's a disservice to you as a coach and to them as a client. The other certification that I think you should get is some sort of psychology or mindset certification, because understanding how to ask those questions will get you further with the clients than
Mhm.
just knowing the science behind it.
Yep.
The science is fantastic, but you have to know how to relay that to human beings
Mhm.
and like ask
Agreed.
the right questions. So in my opinion, those, I mean, aside from like macro mentorship, which actually like catapulted my business and like taught me like everything that I know about running my business, which was, you know, a huge part of it. As far as like developing as a coach beyond that and to sort of like figure out how to level that up. Pre and postnatal course of some kind and some sort of mindset certification, or workshop. It doesn't have to be like an expensive cert. Like
Mhm.
do some sort of continuing ed class. Like go to
Mhm.
a workshop. Like it doesn't matter. Just like allow yourself to like expand in different ways. Like don't settle for like, oh, my clients are losing weight, so that's good enough. Is that good enough? I don't
Ooh.
know. You know, maybe for you, but it's not for me.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be for you. It shouldn't be enough to just see weight loss. Like, you know, your clients might be happy with weight loss, but um, you know, if you're not also seeing the other piece of it, then what happens when that number starts to go up? What happens when they're in a reverse diet or in maintenance and the number goes up or their clothes feel tight? That number doesn't mean anything anymore. That weight loss means nothing anymore because you haven't
Mhm.
addressed what's actually making them feel like the number is the sole reason they're doing this.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I agree. I'll definitely link in the show notes some certifications.
Mhm.
You didn't name drop, but I know we agree on the same one, so I'll just put them in the show notes so that people can see them. But like, you have, like, you really make a good point about it. I think you've brought this up several times with macro mentorship coaches of like the type of content you put out on your page that is free, because we're coaching people for free every day. Every piece of content is them being coached, whether they buy anything from you ever. And you made a really good point several times of like, are you including things other than weight loss on your page so that people understand more than the value of their like self-worth tied to a scale number, the value of getting a coach, because there's other phases to be coached through that don't have to tie to like what you weigh. Like you are the content that you put out there. And if your content is only one thing because that's all you know, then you probably need more education. You probably need to
Mhm.
do a workshop or a different type of cert every year. If you're talking about the same things over and over again, and if someone asks you a question outside of that and you can't explain it, then you probably need to get some more continuing education. It doesn't mean you're a
Mm.
bad coach, you're just in the comfort zone. And you talk about all different types of things so your clients know the value of hiring a coach outside of just weight loss.
Facts. Big
Yep.
I get
facts.
so many I get so many questions from people. You hear it all the time. Should I lower my coaching rate because now I'm reversing them? What? You're still doing the same work. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Or like you can't re-sign a client because their deficit is over. There's like way more to coaching. My client's probably listening right now. She's been with me 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years,
Yeah.
2 kids. You know what I mean?
My client Kelly, I've been working with my client Kelly and Xenia. They have both been with me since Xenia's been working with me before I even started my business on nutrition.
Mhm.
She worked because I had my precision nutrition certification that was great, but I didn't know actually how to coach after completing it, which is where macro mentorship came in. But you know, I've been working with her consistently for over 4 years. Kelly has been 4 years. Kathy has been 5 or 6 years nutrition and like 8 years. Like clients that get it, that get that it's not just about this one phase of weight loss. I mean, I tell them all the time, I'm like, you don't have to stay, like, I'll be here to help you. you don't have to keep training with me. Like, and I know we've talked about this, Eve, before. I've posted about this, but like, I don't expect that I will work with all of my clients for 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Like, I hope that at some point you feel comfortable enough to go off on your own, and you're equipped with not just the tools to understand basic nutritional balance and how to fuel your workouts, how to nourish your body with, healthy foods, but also to navigate vacations, to navigate family situations or parties or whatever the case is in a way that you feel confident with. Like, that's my hope. And I know that like the clients that stay with me do feel confident with those sort of things. They just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, they really like me or something.
Well, it's definitely the longevity though. You stand with a coach, like, I mean, if you have a good one, you
Yes.
typically definitely stay longer. Like,
Yeah.
one of the questions we want to ask you was, have you ever had a bad coach?
Yeah.
But just us focusing on the scale, yeah, I've definitely had one. Like my first coach, it was bad. It was a bad deal for me. Like I was 388, and he immediately put me on like 1,800 calories. And this is before I knew anything about calorie counting and macros. Like this is like before macro mentorship, before macro U, before everything. And I dropped all the way to like 334. I remember this number like it's
Wait,
ironclad in my
234?
head because, huh?
Wait, 234?
334, I said.
Okay.
Can I tell my story?
Sorry, I thought you had the wrong poundage there. My bad.
Man. So see what I'm saying? So
I mean, I love it.
I dropped to 334 and I got stuck. Like I was dropping like crazy, of course, because I was 388 pounds eating 1,800 fucking calories. Like, you
Feeling
know, I
great.
was starving.
Feeling great, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I get stuck and he didn't know what to do. I was at 334 and basically he was like, well, you must be doing something different, this, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. You must not be following. I'm following everything to a T. But I couldn't get past 334 and I was stuck there for like probably like 6, 7 weeks or whatever. And then I finally just cut ties with him and eventually worked my way through. But after that, like I couldn't, like, if I ate a cheat meal, I would gain 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Like after eating 1,800 calories for like 13 months. Like, you know what I mean? So it really hurt me as far as my journey with, even though I lost like 50 pounds with him or whatever. So I've definitely been in that situation. But have you ever had a bad coach?
Yeah, I mean, like it wasn't necessarily a bad coach in the sense that like they didn't know what they were talking about. It wasn't like a shitty situation. It was just I felt like I was one of 200 clients that they were working with. So I think for me, the bad coach, and I don't even want to call it bad coaching because I'm sure that this person knew a lot about nutrition, more than I did at the time that I was working with him. But at that time, I would submit my check-in and, I would get 5 sentence response and that's it. And it was usually like, okay, looks good, keep it up. And I'm like, what am I paying you for? Because it was like $400 a month. And I'm like, so again, it wasn't that he didn't know I don't know. Who knows what he knew? But I felt like there was no connection. I felt like there was no personalization. I felt like there was no even attempt to understand. Like the check-in had a bunch of questions where I was very detailed, not like overly detailed, but like I gave a lot of context as to sort of like what was going on. And there was no like talking about any of the other factors of like why things might be happening with my weight or why things might have been harder for my nutrition that week. Like there was just no education. There was no, I don't know. I felt like I walked away from that coaching situation being like, huh? Like, okay, well, I'm poorer now, but like, other than that, I feel like I'm walking away the exact same person, just Like I wasn't more confused, I wasn't more educated, I just sort of floated through it. So in my opinion, yeah, that's a bad coaching situation. If you don't
Mhm.
feel like you're connecting with your coach or learning something in some way from your coach, if you don't feel like your coach is hearing you, like really hearing you, not just like reading what you've written, but like understanding what you're saying and like truly hearing you,
Mhm.
I don't think that's a good coaching relationship. And I don't like coaching is such a huge investment financially that like if you don't feel like your coach is giving you that, if you don't feel like your coach is truly investing in you the way that you're investing in them, then I feel like that's a problem. You know, and it's not just on the coach, like you have to also like invest your time into the coaching program. Like a good coach can't be a good coach unless you're also showing up. But you know, I think that that's why I kept my client roster so low, is because I'm just like, I don't want anybody to feel like they're one of 200 clients on my roster. Like, it's not
Mhm.
worth it to me.
Right, right.
And people
I
know when
mean,
they are.
oh,
They figure it out
Steve, I
really
know
quick.
you know that. I know you had a very similar experience where it was
Yeah,
just like
like
a
I
10
had
minute
that
turnaround.
I
Like,
think I had it happen 2 or 3 times.
mm,
Like, I mean, like Randall coaches me now, like outside of like our household, I've never had a good coach, which like is really sucky to say.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like you as a coach, do you feel like, okay, if I wanted to hire a coach today for something specific, and you don't have to say whether you have one or looking for one or whatever, but do you feel sometimes like, man, it can be hard?
It can, but like I know what I'm looking for, and I think that like I am planning to hire a coach probably this spring or summer. And I already kind of know who I will probably hire. And it's much more like it would be much more because I know how they are with like the science and the lab work and everything like that versus um looking for any sort of mindset piece to it. Like that I know they
Mhm.
will be able to provide to me, but um I want to know that the person that I'm working with can educate me based on my Hashimoto's, that can educate me based on, you know, the issues that I've had with my hormones and my thyroid and my adrenals. Like, I need to know that the person I'm coaching has that background. So, like, it's like when you're going to get a tattoo. You don't just show up at a tattoo shop and just be like, "I'll take
Mhm.
whoever's available." Like, you have to research who like, what are you looking for out of a coach? Like, what do you want to learn? What are you interested in? What will be most beneficial to you? That's who you hire. You
Yep.
find the
Mhm.
tattoo artist that can do your type of artwork that you're looking for. You don't just walk into a shop and be like, "Hey, can you do a whole sleeve? I've never seen your artwork before, but you look cool." Like,
Risky.
that's what people do with nutrition coaches, you know, like you find someone with a great body online, you're like, "Ooh, I'll hire you because you look good." It's like, but what do you know about them and their coaching style and their education or their qualifications or clients or anything?
Mhm.
Nothing. You know nothing about them except that they probably, you know, I don't know. You don't know anything about them except they have a six pack. But what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah,
nothing.
Hire a
I'm
coach like you look for a tattoo artist. Got it.
You
I mean, it's like the best advice. Like, Randall, how long
do
did it
your
take before
research.
you got your last tattoo? Was it like 3 years you looked for that artist?
Yeah, it was a while. It was definitely some years. Like I was just like, oh, like, cause if you getting something for me, like yeah, definitely, just like you said, just like a health coach, you're gonna be in there for a minute. Somebody's gonna really affect your life. Somebody's gonna be telling you what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, even when you think differently, and you have to kind of go with that to give that program and that coach a chance to succeed, or you're not even giving them a chance to do what you actually hired them for. And
Thanks.
with a tattoo, you like, this is gonna be on me for life.
And I
So
trust that you are a good artist and you know what will come across best on my skin for my
absolutely,
whole life. So
absolutely.
yeah, you
So if
got to do
I'm
your
looking at your
research.
shit and I see If I'm looking at you and I like, but I see something I don't like next, like I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna wait until I find somebody that I like everything they doing before I let them put some ink on me.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to find him, and I finally found him, and I love the work he did. But
There you go.
I mean, you got to be patient and do your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask questions to the coach that you plan on working with. They should be open to talking about their, ethics. They should be, open to talking about their education and, what they stand for as a coach and how they coach and, what they feel is important for, lifestyle behavior changes. They should be able to tell you all these things. They should be able to tell you how they approach, working with a new client that has struggled in the past with A, B, C, and D. Like, I feel like a lot of times clients are afraid to ask those types of questions, or like they shouldn't for some reason. Like they don't have a place to ask those questions, but it's like it's a job interview. You're hiring this person and you're paying them a lot of money to be a huge part of your life and your health. So why wouldn't you ask them questions about whether or not they're qualified to be that role in your life?
True.
I love when people ask me questions. Like, bring it on. Ask me things. I'll tell you what I don't know. I'll tell you exactly what I don't know, but I'll tell you what I do know. And if that's good, then that's good. Let's work together.
Yeah, true. Because everybody ain't for everybody. And that don't mean that you're a bad coach or a bad person. Like, everybody's just not for everybody.
1000%. 1000%.
I think it's good to say, like, I'm not the person for you, and then refer them to somebody else.
I just had that conversation a couple weeks ago. I had a call with somebody who she was looking for personal training. She had like a myriad of like chronic pain issues that she was working through. And she was looking for just like online training. She lived in upstate New York. And I'm like, this is not like, if you were in person, I could help. I could probably help you get to a point where you can lift and start making improvements. But you need to see someone in person. You need to see someone near you. And it's not worth it to me to take the money knowing full well I don't have any business doing that for her. It's doing her a disservice. And now she trusts me. She has already updated me with who she's working with and how it's going. And I know she follows me. She's on my email list. And who knows if we'll work together in the future, but she trusts me. And I think that that's more impactful than saying like, okay, well, maybe we'd have 12 weeks of a shitty coaching relationship where she might not see the changes that she wants to because I'm not there with her,
which then could ruin her coaching, like the way that she perceives coaching. One bad experience can keep people away from like hitting their goals.
That is what I'm saying. I don't ever want to be the bad coaching story that somebody tells their next coach. And that's exactly what I've been to her. I'm like, I know I'm a good coach, but in this situation, I'm not the coach for you. That's okay. I think in year one of my business, I don't know that I would have been strong enough to say that because I was in such a scared, like, holding on for dear life, hoping that this wasn't just like a fluke. So I like just said yes to everybody because who knows if everyone was going to leave me next month and I would fail miserably. But now I feel confident in where I am with my business and my clients and all the work that I'm doing with macro mentorship. Like, I know that this is like, we're good. I'm not going anywhere. So if a client comes to me now and is like, hey, this is what I got and it's not a good fit, then
and that feels good. I think it feels good to just own where you're at and be like, I don't have to. Because this is one of Hannah's popular quotes that is so popular in the Guzman.
I don't even know what she's gonna say. I don't even know what she's gonna say.
I know what's coming.
I'm nervous.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Hey, that's ironclad.
That could be with a lot of things. That could be like deadlifting 400 pounds, bench pressing 450. Like, not that I'm poking at
benching heavy.
We're
But,
benching
like,
that. No,
we-
it's not don't bench 450. It's don't bench 450 as your first working
Yeah.
set. Like
Warm up
don't bench
first.
450 as your warm up.
Yeah. Get
Just
your
because you
warm-up on.
can doesn't mean you should.
You should.
Yeah.
But it could
Yeah.
also be like it's your rest day. You don't have to go do some extra benching of 450. You feel sore, you feel slightly injured. Do you really need to be deadlifting today? It's like
Randall,
stuff like
she's
that.
calling you out. She's calling you out, Randall.
She is. She all in my
It
business right
sounds
now.
personal.
She all up in my
over there.
business. Like, hey, you put my business in the streets like this?
I
But
didn't say that.
honestly, it's
You
like
did.
great advice for all parts of your life.
Yeah.
Like whether you're
It
an
is. No, it is.
entrepreneur or not, like you guys, if you are not following Hannah at this point, like you definitely need to go to her Instagram account because there's so many things that you write in a way that can be carried over into other places.
That's
So
the goal.
that is definitely the
I'm
goal.
glad that that's how it comes across because that's how I want it to come across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and I won't get into like all of it, but like if you know that like today I posted something about how my niece slept over this past weekend, and that's very hard for me. It's very hard for me to have a child in my home without their parent for almost 24 hours. And so when I can relate that as a non-parent to parents who are like, please, you had her for, she's 10 years old, you had her for 10 hours, like get a grip. Like that's nothing. That's a piece of cake. But when they can see that like that is hard for me because I only do that a few times a year. Drinking water, protein, working out, getting my step, like that's all easy to me because I've been doing that every day for 15 years. It's hard for them because they're not doing that every day for 15 years. So
Mhm.
when you can relate it to other things where they're like, oh, well, yeah, the parenting thing was really hard for me in the beginning too. And now it's just like, it's not easy, but it's doable because I've been doing it every day for X number of years. When we're relating these things to like cross lifestyle experiences, it allows them to look at it differently versus this thing that like they're just not comfortable with, that they don't know about. We got to relate it to how this applies to other places in their life, other things that they're doing, other challenges that they have already overcome, or that they can connect the dots easier to, rather than just this one obscure thing that they're not currently doing, or they don't know how to see a way where it's going to fit.
Mhm.
Right? You find things that they have fit in, or they have been able to add or do. Then you say, okay, well, how can we then use all the hand motions in this one? How can we then go ahead and do that for these new healthy behaviors? So I'm glad that that's how that comes across. That's how I want it to.
Only 3
Good.
years of work.
Oh my God.
Yes.
How has it only been?
You
Feels
said,
like,
how has it only been 3 years?
oh, it feels.
That's
I
when your
mean,
messaging like really changed 3 years
I
ago.
know. I know. It's funny,
Crazy.
like when I think back to like when I was in macro mentorship, it feels like a lifetime ago. It also feels like it was like a year and a half ago. Like
Mhm.
it is wild. Granted, like half of that was pandemic time, but like, and what is time during the pandemic? But yeah, it has flown by.
It
Flown
has.
by.
But we're happy that we got to be a part of it. You in our life, we in yours, and then you in macro
Yes.
mentorship.
All of it.
Yeah.
One big
all that
happy
bullshit shit.
family.
So where can all of our listeners find you? Where do you like to hang out? What are your socials?
I like to hang out on my Instagram page, at HannahJ28. That is the only social I technically have a Facebook page, but just find me on Instagram. That is where you're going to find me. In the link in the bio is where all my applications and my email list is. Every Monday, I send out an email with all sorts of goodies, stuff that you will not find on my Instagram page. So if you like the content that I put out on my Instagram, get on the email list. I do not spam. I just send out an email once a week, and it's fire. Are the kids still saying that? Maybe not.
Just
I
us.
don't think so. I don't think so.
Damn
It's
it.
lit.
It's lit? No, they're
Yeah.
definitely not saying that anymore.
I
They're just a
don't
bunch
know.
of old people over here.
Hey,
but
that's
yeah,
how-
that's
Oh,
where
go.
to find me.
Old people changing lives, changing lives.
man.
Well, I'm so
Man.
happy that you could join us today on the
Thank you for
podcast.
having
It's been a
me.
pleasure. If you guys are joining Macro Mentorship, you'll definitely get to see some of the best versions of Hannah inside of our coaching program.
Thank you so
For
much
sure,
for
for
having me. This
sure.
was fun.
I know,
Little
and so
chat.
easy.
I know.
It
I didn't
was, it
stutter
was.
once.
Look at you.
Look
Look
at
at
me.
you. Nah,
Oh,
it's been real. It's definitely been good chopping it up with you today. Thank you everyone for listening. As usual, make sure you like, share, download, and go follow Hannah.
thank
Until
you so
next time,
much.
we'll holla at y'all. Thanks for listening to our podcast today. Make sure you like, share, and tag us on Instagram. Also, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future episodes. In the meantime, be healthy and get wealthy.